Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite GPP or tournament plays for this Week 13 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like I always do here in these videos, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of my cheat sheet, breaking down some of my favorite game stacks and individual plays and stacks here for this Week 13 NFL DraftKings main slate. But as always, everyone, just want to remind you and highly recommend joining my free Discord channel. You can see that mentioned above. 850 people in there as of today, talking multiple different sports for DFS, NFL, NHL, NBA, as well as sharing some of their favorite sports bets. If you want to join that, there's a link to do so in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below. With that being said, let's dive right into this. I know I talked about this in my cash plays video already, but I am getting these videos out late this week, spending time in Arizona this week with my family for Thanksgiving, so this is going to be a very high-level overview video. With that being said, let's dive into a couple of game stacks that I like this week, starting with that game between the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams. I like stacking up the Rams side with Matthew Stafford and his top two pass catchers and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and then running it back with Alvin Kamara. Now, I mixed in Juwan Johnson there as well because he's super affordable at $3,100, but that tight end situation for the New Orleans Saints is very tricky as well. You got Taysom Hill there, you got Foster Moreau, and then Juwan Johnson. Now, I went with Johnson because he's a big body guy that they do look for in the red zone or towards the goal line. So really my goal there is, can he get a couple of looks in the red zone or towards the goal line, maybe score a couple of touchdowns, but ultimately at $3,100, it just reduced the average salary of this stack, and I did like that. And then another game stack that I like here this week is this game between Minnesota and the Arizona Cardinals. Playing in a dome, I always like that, especially as we get later into the season, avoiding the bad weather. But Sammy Darnold here stacked up with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. I don't want to say Hawkinson's the number 2 pass catcher quite yet, because Addison's been playing some really good football as of late, and you could mix him in this stack as well if you wanted to. But I like Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson considering his price there at $4,400. And JJ's just flying under the radar right now this week. Going to come in at pretty decent ownership. Low ownership at that, and then running it back there with Trey McBride. Now, notoriously, I would go with someone like a James Conner because he's really game script proof, right? If they're winning this game, he's going to run the ball more. If he's losing this game, he's going to be involved in the passing game, but Minnesota is one of the best defenses at stopping the run, so I ultimately went with Trey McBride, who saw 15 targets last week. Now, folks, before we dive into some of these individual plays and stacks here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Every like, comment, and sub that you guys leave, which is completely free to do, it does help me out a lot, and again, I really do appreciate it. Alright, now diving into the quarterbacks here, we're going to kick it off there with Baker Mayfield. Love this matchup against Carolina. We all know how bad that defense is. We can stack them up with Mike Evans and or Cade Otton. Got a couple of honorable mentions there as well with Joe Burrow. He's trending really well on FTN this week in terms of a GPP score, so that's why I put him as an honorable mention. You can stack him up with Jamar Chase and or T. Higgins, and then Bryce Young. This is kind of my flyer play of the week. That secondary for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is not great. Bryce Young has looked much better here since coming off the bench, and I know it's not been elite play, but far better than he was playing earlier this year and in his rookie season, and he's got some really cheap stacking pieces, so I will be making one of my tournament lineups this week with Bryce Young and a Carolina Panthers stack. Now moving on to the running backs here, I got Derrick Henry there to kick things off, coming in at really low ownership this week, and while it's not the best of matchups against Philadelphia, whose defense has been playing better as of late, this is Derrick frickin' Henry, man. This guy can score from anywhere, anytime, any place against any defense, so if he's going to come in at low ownership, I will take advantage of that in tournaments. Now, speaking of low ownership, Rachaad White of the Buccaneers is flying under the radar because Bucky Irving is the guy to go to this week. And don't get me wrong, I like Bucky here this week. Talked about him in my cash plays video, but he's coming in around 24% ownership. And really, Rachaad White is still seeing plenty of opportunity in this offense to where he could have a big game against a bad Carolina defense. I mean, hell, you could play both him and Bucky in the same tournament lineup. Both those guys priced in the 5K range in a smash spot. Hope that the Bucs score 3-4 touchdowns. Both those guys find the end zone, and then you get out of that game. And then wrapping it up with an honorable mention in Joe Mixon. I love both him and Nico Collins in this matchup this week against Jacksonville. Both have 25, 30 plus DraftKings point upside, and I will be playing both of those guys in the same tournament lineup. And then speaking of going to the wide receivers here, you can see Nico Collins at the top. He absolutely dominated this secondary earlier this season. Like I said, just a really good spot here for Houston in general. Mike Evans, easy to stack up with Baker Mayfield in a good spot against Carolina. And then Devontae Smith, if he is healthy to play here on Sunday, way too cheap at $5,800. This is the cheapest he's been all season long. He crept into the 7K range earlier this season, so we're getting him at a massive discount. T. Higgins there, you can see him stacked up with Joe Burrow, $6,600. I like Jamar Chase obviously as well. You could even do a double stack there. And then Alec Pierce, considering that Josh Downs is not going to play this week, we should see some more targets go his way, and he's got that big play potential where he can score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. And then a couple of tight ends there. I like Cade Otton, name dropped him earlier when talking about Baker, just a really good spot against Carolina. And then Hunter Henry, man, is a go-to guy for Drake May. A lot of opportunity continues to go his way, and I do like that matchup against Indianapolis. And then wrapping it up there with the higher price defense than the Vikings. I know I talked about that game stack earlier. I think there is some shootout potential there, but this defense shows up week in and week out as well. They got playmakers, they can turn the ball over, they create sacks and pressure, and they're back at home here, so I do like that. And then the Jets at $2,500, a cheaper defense playing the Seattle Seahawks at home. They still got some playmakers on that defense as well. I know that team is basically checked out, but at $2,500, I think that's just a little too cheap. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks, and let's win some money on this Week 13 main slate.